Hey, what's up? Welcome back. We just recently hit another big milestone. Do. Why is YouTube so unresponsive? Shoot, there's like another video I was making recently where I was trying to look up a video on my own channel and it was like really hella laggy. Anyways, we hit 1,100,000 views. So I thought I would do another best list video or whatever. This is a very silly idea I had recently. Top 11 memes. But what is a meme? I'm not talking about, internet jokes. Here we go. I'm not talking about image macros or YouTube poops or whatever else you kids are into these days. I'm talking about the old school definition of a meme proposed by Richard Dawkins in The Selfish Gene. By the way, no matter what you think of Richard Dawkins as a person, whether you think his kind of public persona is annoying or not, I know a lot of people do, I think everyone should read this book. This book is fantastic. It's just a really understandable and yet complex enough to be very interesting introduction to topics on evolution and such. And in this book, he set forth this brand new idea of a meme, which is like a gene, but where genes propagate themselves through generations by encoding themselves in the DNA and influencing how our bodies develop as we grow. The meme is an idea that passes from generation to generation, but in many ways is similar to a gene in that it kind of self-perpetuates, and if it's fit for survival, it will stay alive, and if it's useless, it will kind of be discarded by the wayside. So lots and lots and lots of things are memes, but I should note that I'm treating it as distinct from like an invention or a technology. Like let's say we got like the Switch. The Switch is not a meme, insofar as I don't have to tell anyone about it for this to continue existing. I don't have to teach my descendants, how to make the Switch. It already exists. It's already invented and will kind of continue existing without mimetic reproduction. So what am I talking about? Well, let's get into our list, which I'm going to present in my typical extremely low effort fashion of just doing image searches, and then you can just kind of look at it. But a lot of these aren't going to work very well. For example, number 11 is critique. Critique. This is the mimetic idea that when someone creates some work of art, that there is value and that it's an interesting thing to do to discuss the work of art, to try to pick out the motivations behind it, the way that it functions, the way that it creates an emotional response in the viewer and in the critiquer, of course. It can be very subjective, it can be very objective, it can be very distanced and analytical, it can be very intimate. It can take all sorts of forms. Even these videos that I make where I talk about manga, I would call a type of critique. I think critique is really important in that it sort of elevates art from just shouting things into the void and hoping that they have their intended effect into an actual dialogue between the creators and the observers. Not that these lines are hard and fast, but that it gives kind of a new significance to artistic creation, insofar as that the things produced during critique in themselves have kind of a new value, and yet I wouldn't call them art themselves. Like it creates this new layer around art, which I think is really cool. And then of course you can have critiques of critiques and critiques of critiques of critiques and art made in response to critiques. So it turns this into this like fractally expanding, many-layered dialogue. And I feel like it gets a bad rap. First off, the word sounds very negative, that people associate it with like criticism, which is a very loadedly negative word, like you're pointing out things wrong with it, and then that's the only point of critique. But I think critique just as much should elevate art. It has just as many opportunities to show you cool things about it that you might not have noticed before. or to give it a broader context that helps you understand why it was created in the first place and empathize with the creator and thus get more invested into it. I think it gets such a bad rap. And then people associate it with like writing long papers in high school that they hated. Well, some people hate it. I love doing that. And then, of course, getting those papers graded is all part of this horrifying critique monster. But come on, guys. Let's give critique a chance. All right. Next, at number 10, we have agriculture. Agriculture, probably the oldest meme on this list. Basically, early man for a long time was just kind of an idiot, and he went dum 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 dum, and he was wandering about looking for berries or small animals to eat, or I don't know, I'm not an anthropologist, but I know that at one point people got the idea that why don't we take the tasty food we like and plant it ourselves and just have tons and tons and tons of it, and then we can just like stay here. We can stay here and make sure it just keeps growing and over again, and we just eat it and we grow some more. Basically, you know, just putting plants on our side. You could argue that this is somewhat of a technology that once, you know, farms and seeds were invented, that there was sort of this... can you guys hear that? That's really annoying. There's been something beeping out in the hall off and on all day. It doesn't matter. Anyways, I think agriculture is often regarded as sort of the linchpin, the foundation of society as we know it. That until we had big centralized farms where it was better for everyone if everyone just worked together and then took their share of this gigantic amount of food they were able to create, it didn't really make sense for humans to congregate at all. And that everyone would stick in very small, maybe family to 2 family sized tribes, and that it was really, you know, it wasn't at all advantageous to go out hunting and gathering with your friends, because anything that you hunt or gather is just one less thing that they can hunt or gather. But with agriculture, the very nature of work, for better or worse, in some ways worse, I think, changed. Anyways, that's number 10. The next one is going to be maybe controversial. It's religion. Some people would object to this being anything less than first, I'm sure. Some people would object to having it on this list at all. And yeah, in the name of religion, people have done some really, really atrocious things. And also, in the name of religion, people have done some really wonderful, selfless, life-improving things. But I'm not really interested in just kind of stacking those two up and seeing which side is heavier. I'm talking about the very mimetic origins of religion and the effect that that has. Where basically, you know, at the most basic idea, religion is saying there is something supernatural above and beyond the reality that you can observe. And that the choices you make while living have some significance that's way, way, way more important for your immortal life to come. To me, this is like a mind-blowing idea. This is, again, another very ancient meme. Before religion, I can't really think that there was a whole lot going on. You know, you would be farming, maybe, you would be out foraging, hunting, whatever. And there was really never any reason to stop doing that. Like, why would you go off and sing a song or meditate or try to sculpt something? It would just slow you down from getting food for you and your family to eat. There would be no evolutionary benefit for it, and thus any genes that compelled you to do that would probably die off. This is, of course, genetic theory. But the meme of religion, where someone comes along and says, hey, we gotta go, you know, worship the great waterfall, gotta go offer our prayers to it and meditate about it and stuff. And the guy goes, what? Like, I gotta go eat. Like, what are you talking about? I have to eat or else I'm gonna die. And they're like, okay, but if you don't do this, your immortal soul is gonna suffer forever. And they're like, oh shit, well, I guess I better. And this, to me, is such a fundamental shift from the priorities of man, from a purely animalistic, I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to mate, to the very idea, the most basic idea that maybe there's something else going on. Maybe there's something else we can do that matters even more than just staying alive. That to me is pretty cool. So what kind of things are worth staying alive for? I guess is the most basic question. Here's one. Cuisine. Huh? Did I just spell kitchen in French? French. I thought this would give me pictures of food. But no, it's just, that's the word for kitchen in French, so. So what I mean is that this is the mimetic idea that, for a long time man only ate for survival. And we kind of happened upon crops that were domesticatable, that we could grow in perpetuity. And of course, there was probably things we preferred to eat. And the genetic disposition to prefer certain foods, to prefer the taste of sugary or fatty foods is quite interesting as well. But putting that aside, there must have been a certain point when people started doing things, they started taking their time just to make things taste better, that they would not just eat the most available, stomach-filling, nutritious food that they could find. Not that they knew anything about nutrients, but they probably had some kind of ad hoc theories about it. But instead, they would go well out of their way to prepare dishes just for the pure pleasure. I was going to say pleasure, and then I was going to say joy, and I found myself almost about to say the word ploy, which I quite like that word that I just invented, ploy. Alright, our next meme is ploy, the word ploy. No, ploy is already a word, right? It's part of like a scheme. At any rate, yeah, this idea of preparing food for pleasure, I think is could be distinguished as a separate meme. Of course, independently reproduced in cultures all around the world in unique ways. And I think, a love of food is something that people kind of admonish and make fun of the foodie type, people that just kind of obsess over food but don't really cook themselves. But why not, man? Like, food is pretty crazy when you think about it. Just the wide variety of different tastes and sensations you can have just by eating things. It's mind-blowing, and it would be a real shame if we didn't learn to take advantage of that as much as possible. Next, this is one that's maybe hard to pin down as a distinguishable meme, but I think there's something going on here. Storytelling. This is, of course, another very ancient meme. To me, it seems like if you're just learning language, at first, all you would really be able to do is convey instructions or like information. So things like, bring that to me. You can imagine that being a very basic, very easy to evolve sentence because it's just so useful. Or something like, there are deer over there. Let's hunt them. These sort of just like super basic suggestions and statements of fact. But then I would imagine one of the first things that goes kind of above and beyond this purely utilitarian thing is storytelling. And storytelling to me comes so early because it has, I think, a fairly obvious benefit where if you tell someone a story, it's like they have lived that experience to some extent, and you can either straight tell them or they can infer lessons from the story. They won't make the same mistakes as you. It's sort of like they had that experience without actually having to have it. They get the benefits of it. And also, storytelling, of course, is one of the progenitors and kind of earliest art forms, in that there is the art of storytelling to keep people invested, to keep people interested in what's going to happen, such that when the lessons hit, be implicit or explicit, they're going to resonate a lot more because you've put yourself in the shoes of the storyteller that much more. And I think a lot of language probably came out of storytelling. Until you get to relating your own personal experiences for some benefit of the listener, I don't really see what the benefit is in speaking about the distant episodic past, to say, this happened to me a week ago, to talk about kind of the speculative future. Oh geez, if I'm ever there again, I'm sure as heck not going to go down that path because that's where the bear lives. You know, like these sort of more abstract reasoning and thinking, I think, come out of storytelling, which makes it, of course, just so important. I can't imagine where linguistics and even just human consciousness would be without the idea of storytelling. All right, next. This is a good one. Games, baby. We got games. Look at all these games. Video games. Teen Titan Go, Training Power, Super Lucky's Tale. Okay, Mario Kart, right? Finally one we know. Kiki Quiz? Cool. Is this like Lego? Is this just like a lot of video? Okay, weird. But it doesn't matter. Okay, games. Basically, I often wonder, you know, we've grown up on this planet where at a certain point things stop just photosynthesizing or taking heat from the ground and they started eating each other. And I often wonder, like, is it possible to have a planet where intelligent life evolves where that never happened and they're still just photosynthesizing or whatever? It's pretty hard to imagine, but I often wonder if they did and that intelligent life saw us, would they see so many things fundamental to us as like completely abhorrent and so ridiculously violent, and like maybe that's why nobody's talking to us. Maybe we're just like a super rare carnivorous intelligent species, and everything else just subsists by basking in their sun. And they're like, what the hell are these weird apes doing? It doesn't matter. All of this is to say that I think there is a compulsion in humans to compete. You know, even our genetic theory suggests a sort of survival of the fittest, where only so many people in the population are going to be able to reproduce, and you have to... This is all like very animalistic type descriptions, but you know what I'm saying here. Like you have to win to some extent. You have to stay alive. And the beauty of modern society is that we've transcended this at its most base animalistic level. And now you're free to choose whether or not you want to have a family. And we don't need to feel like we're competing with every single stranger on the street and every single social interaction. There's enough food at the table, at least in our decadent Western first world. But we do still have this compulsion, I think, to compete, or at least I do. And games are basically a way to exert that and to have the fun of that and to learn the lessons from that without it really meaning anything. So I don't know when games were invented. That would actually be an interesting one to research. I know they found evidence of board games in like ancient Egyptian tombs and stuff. So I would have to think that much less formalized games existed before then. Things like soccer or just like try to hit me with the ball. Okay, you couldn't. Now I'm going to try to hit you with the ball, or like the goat's head or whatever the hell they had as a ball. You know, it's pretty easy to come up with a game. I feel like even children in total isolation would probably come up with the idea of games on their own. But it has mimetically perpetuated, either through specific games or just this idea of gaming as a way to occupy your time. And I think it's pretty beautiful. I think people's ability to play games well has paved new pathways of human existence. That it's possible to care about a game like more than anything else in your life. That everything else is just subservient to allowing you to continue progressing at the game. it's crazy. It's almost like a religion that we've made ourselves, that we've created this thing. Well, of course we made all. We've created this thing that transcends the most objectively important aspects of our lives. Yeah, look at all these games, man. It's totally dominated by video games. This is sort of like some of these are recreations of non-video games in video game form. Oh. Why? Alright, next on our list, National Socialism. Okay, next is... Ooh, this is a good one. Science. Science, baby. If you've been reading Dr. Stone, you know how important this one is. Science is kind of the mimetic idea that through repeatable, testable, objective experiments, you can measure, predict, and even control natural occurrences that through much of human history were just sort of dismissed as probably God is doing it, or no, that just happens. You know, sometimes water comes from the sky. You know, we can try to like deal with it, but eventually through leaps and bounds, you know, things like the Renaissance, before that Socrates and sort of the Greek philosophers. Oh, maybe I should have put philosophy on this list. It's a hard one to pin down, though. They started to realize that a more rigorous method, a more objective and reliable method could be used to figure out, like, what the hell is going on out there? Like, what is all this stuff and why? Science is really cool because it has a universality to it. We know that if we detect some property of the element nitrogen, that it's not going to suddenly stop being true for nitrogen over in Australia or something. That we're actually able to scrape down to the most fundamental parts of our reality and then build back up from there to create pretty much all of the technology we know today. Requires some sort of scientific thinking and understanding of the properties and the chemicals and stuff involved. Where would we be without science? I don't know. Even before we had the word science, and even before we had the scientific principle of testing and confirming and hypothesizing and what have you, people were doing rudimentary science. You know, the domestication of crops and animals and such does require kind of a scientific understanding that you go, hey, if we keep planting this crop, it always crops up, it always pops up at around this time when the sun is this part of the sky. That seems true like forever. We should make a note of that. We should make sure that people know, hey, the sun's about this part in the sky. Get ready, the corn is coming. You know, like these sort of reasonings are scientific in nature. Even if, of course, they attributed them totally fundamentally off. But then again, with our sometimes shaky understanding of fundamental forces in the world, like what the hell is gravity? Why do things have mass? Maybe the same thing could be argued for us. But not anywhere near as convincingly. Okay. After science, of course, we have to have math. This is sort of the structure behind science. This is the skeleton that makes it work, that allows you to reason about the way things interact in physics and in chemistry and what have you. Math is, I think, even cooler than science, in that science, we can come up with stuff that's true for our universe, that it's true even if we go to planet Bluflargajarg, 50 light years away. They're still going to have nitrogen that has the same atomic structure and what have you. But with math, we can come up with stuff that's true in any universe. Like take a triangle. This is actually a good example. We got our right angle triangle here, and they're demonstrating the Pythagorean theorem, that if you take a square made of this side length and a square made of this side length and combine them, the area will be the same as the square on this side length. Now, you can't imagine a right angle triangle on a 2D plane for which this doesn't hold true. It's literally impossible to imagine. So we must assume that any imaginable universe, this would also hold true. And this, of course, is as basic as it gets. Or something like, all three angles of a triangle are going to add up to 180 degrees. So that if you rearrange the triangle so that all the corners are sticking together at one point, you're going to get a flat line. That holds true for any triangle. Anything that's shaped like a triangle and exists as like a flat two-dimensional object. Of course, things can't really exist in 2 dimensions, which is the crying shame. Next on our list is anime. No, I'm just kidding. But it's like this idea that you can, even I can rudimentary be like, okay, how do we know that the Pythagorean theorem, there's not going to be one where like this angle is 90 degrees, but then this angle is even bigger than 90 degrees. And it's like, maybe that's hard for you to reason on its own. Like you can feel like maybe I could imagine a triangle where that holds true, where we have 2 greater than 90 degree angles. But then you can rely back on this other theorem that all 3 angles of the triangle will add up to 180 degrees. And the two kind of like keep each other in check, that you can start pushing into territory where things aren't so immediately imaginable. And you can bust it all the way back down to these fundamental principles that are very easily imaginable. And then you know that you're making math work. You're connecting math to everyday life. Math is just so cool, and I wish I was smarter and more dedicated and I could really plunge into it. But if you like that kind of idea of really cool, complex rules and structures emerging from very simple, understandable things, I think the best book I could recommend, and this is a banger that hopefully a lot of you know, Gödel Escher Bach gives you a really good rundown on things like number theory, and allows you to kind of see in a very basic example how math is done, how new discoveries in math are made, starting from very understandable elementary particles. So yeah, math is a banger, but it loses out. I'm sorry, my nerd friends. Number 3 is art. Art still wins. And of course here, when I search art, we just get visual art, paintings mostly. But I refer to a very, very, very broad understanding of art, where art is anything that is made to share an emotional state between the creator and the receiver. Anything that you define as art, even if you didn't really create it, but you just present it in a context where people could have an emotional response to it, and your intent is for those people to have an emotional response. It doesn't matter what the emotional response you intended is, or the one that they have, or how mismatched those are, but as long as you're engaging in that process, you are creating art. So this includes music, theater, dance, paintings, cave paintings, animation, doodles, singing, that I already said music, video games, what else we got? Cooking, to some extent, I guess, is art. Even playing a game can be art. You know what, I'm even going to broaden it further. If someone has an emotional response to something you're doing, that to them is art. That is still art, even if you have never intended it to be taken as art. What else is art? I don't know. Everything. Even math is art. So take that. There's no way math could lose to it. Well, maybe I'm going a little far now. At any rate, art, to me, is very cool because, like math, you are creating a system that will hold true in all conceivable universes. Now, in math, you're creating a very objective system that anyone who goes into it with the same meaning in their minds for what the various symbols mean or whatever should arrive at the exact same conclusions as you. It has that consistency. But with art, you're creating something that, again, is just as true no matter like where you place it. Like if I draw Starry Night and somehow I send Starry Night to planet Gvlugglorg and the aliens are looking at it, it's still the same piece of art. It's still this beautiful painting of the view outside of the asylum that Van Gogh was in. They don't know that it's that. They don't know maybe that this is a tree. They might not even figure out that these are stars. But they'll still perhaps have an emotional response to this art. It would be very fascinating to think about what that might be. And it still means that the art is like working. You know? Even if these aliens are so far removed from our sensibilities that they can't even comprehend this as anything but a piece of canvas over a wooden frame that has slight color variations in it, and they immediately incinerate it. It doesn't change the existence of this art. So when you create art, you are laying down like a fundamental fact of the universe, that this arrangement of choices, this sequence of decisions, whatever, that this is something. Do you know what I mean? That you've declared a deliberation to it. That this is not arbitrary. This is not something that just happened to come out like this. But this is the Starry Night. Do you know what I'm saying? It's really hard to explain. But that's sort of the shared pan-universality between math and art. So in the same way that you cannot physically imagine a triangle that doesn't add up to 180 degrees, a flat triangle. I keep saying flat triangle because I know you guys are going to put a triangle on a sphere and you're like, oh, look at this. You cannot imagine the Starry Night without, like, creating the Starry Night. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not nothing. It's not... I don't know. Alright, let's just move on. Art is number 3. Number 2 is language. Oh, of course I love language. What do we do on this channel? I just babble on and on and on and on and on. Language to me is a completely mind-blowing thing. The very fundamental basics of it, I would say, as a meme, is codification. It's kind of symbolic reasoning. That before you have language, if you want to say deer, you have to go out into the woods, you gotta stab it with a spear, and you gotta drag it back over and point to it. They're like, oh, yeah. But they wouldn't say, oh, yeah, they would just eat it, I guess. But with language, we just end up with this word, deer. And you say it, and the other person hears it, and in their mind, they think of a deer. I cannot imagine that you could think very hard without language, that you would be able to reason at much depth without being able to codify things and put them in kind of sequences of logical structure. Like, again, language, I think, is underpinning a lot of the other memes we've talked about. Like, I can't really picture... Well, I guess you could do kind of math without language, just purely geometrically or whatever, but to me, you certainly couldn't do... I mean, even thinking about words like certainly and do, these have no physical correspondence to any visual thing in reality. These are unimaginable things. They only work to intensify or to point to other words in the linguistic structure. And yet, there's so much that couldn't be expressed without these abstract, unreal words that you need symbolic reasoning for. So to me, language is more than just the step of going, okay, this word deer means deer, that thing out there. I'm not going to bother coming to get it for you every time. The creation of the word it to point to the word dear previously in the sentence is what really allows this really wonderful complexity to build up. Yeah, man. Language is good. Language is great. Leads to a lot of crazy misunderstandings and stuff. We're not the best at it yet, but I sure, geez, man, I really can't imagine what it'd be like without it. Finally, what's our number one? What's our number one? Let's run down the list again very quickly. You can see if you can guess what's left. Oh! I just showed it to you. Should have erased it or something first. What was the plan there? Why did I think that would work? Alright, whatever. Number one is dogs. Dogs, baby. The best meme of all time. Oh, look at how cute they are. You know, often we hear arguments about kind of scientific and technological discoveries to the effect of people shouldn't play God. People shouldn't tamper with things that are too natural. But we've been playing God since before the beginning of recorded history. Well, history, that would be another good one to put on the list. Anyways, I guess history is sort of like storytelling, so I kind of covered it. And philosophy, when I said philosophy before, that's kind of science. It's just science applied to very abstract things. Anyways, it's good. Solid list. Let's go. Dogs, number one though. We've been playing dogs since since before we were farming. Did I say playing dogs? I meant playing God. Playing God with dogs. Domesticating them such that they could never survive in the harsh world of nature. Look at this adorable little loaf. This guy wouldn't make it a week in some frozen tundra out there fighting with polar bears. Dogs, it's like we made something that can just enjoy all the benefits of all of the other memes we've listed, all the benefits of human society, of human companionship, of the rich interior life that humans have built up within themselves that allows them to express things like love and admiration and fondness in such abstract ways that could never give it any sort of genetic benefit. Like, dogs are almost the purest meme in that, you know, we can't breed with dogs. Our genetic lineage is never going to be hastened along by having a dog. In fact, the domesticated dog, is just eating our food and stuff. That's not to say that we haven't made dogs useful in many ways. Probably the origins of domestication came from hunting dogs. Wolves that we would convince to come along and kill stuff with us, and then we both ate it. Isn't that wonderful? But nowadays we have all sorts of useless dogs that just are living as this. Why are there dogs humping? I don't want to see that. Living as these kind of zeroth class citizens. We love dogs, and when I keep saying dogs, I don't want to get into some big dogs versus cats argument. I love cats too, but I had to choose one for this list. And the fact that we have made dogs useful members of our society in many capacities too. We've given them jobs and stuff. Drug dogs, bomb dogs, guard dogs, patrol dogs. Even little foraging dogs that come along with us looking for, I don't know, pigs look for mushrooms. It's hard for me to pin down exactly the substantive point that I'm trying to get at here. It just seems really wonderful to me that we made this cute thing that everyone thinks is cute, and we all love it, and we've basically elevated it to this super protected member of our society. Like, I feel like animal abuse is more widely condemned than human abuse, right? It's sort of like child abuse, I think, is the closest thing to it. Because dogs have remained innocent, whereas humans have, for every single meme on this list, subverted it in some sort of damaging, selfish, or totally nihilistically annihilatory way. What have we ever done to dogs? Like, dogs have remained pure of all of that. I don't know, man. There's something really special going on here. It's something that I think we as a human race should take a step back and be like, holy crap! I can't believe we've done this, and to maybe take some pride in it. All the other memes I've listed, it's hard to have kind of a universal, definitive. This was good. It's a good thing that we came up with agriculture. There's arguments to be made both ways. But dogs? Come on, man. He's thinking of you. This is the Simpsons kid. What? Alright, that's my list. It was a very silly list, but I had fun making it. I didn't give a whole lot of thought to it. There's probably ones I forgot. I think history is debatable in inclusion. Philosophy might be distinct enough. Medicine, I'd say, is up there. Yeah, actually, probably medicine I probably should have included. I don't know. At any rate, let me know. What are your top memes? And thanks so much for 1,100,000 views. That's crazy. That's so many. How? What are you watching? What? This crap? Really? That's great. Alright. Bye-bye.